Betrayal has a way of cutting deeper than most experiences because it doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people you trusted, people you opened your heart to, people you believed saw your value. And when that trust is broken, the first instinct is to look inward and ask, what did I do wrong? What is it about me that allowed this to happen? But you must interrupt that thought immediately because it is built on a false foundation. What happened to you is not a reflection of your worth, it is a revelation of their character. You must understand that every individual operates from the condition of their inner world. People do not suddenly become deceptive, dishonest, or manipulative in one moment. They simply reveal what has been living within them all along. Character is not created in a crisis, it is exposed by it. And betrayal is one of the clearest exposures of all. When someone chooses to betray, they are making a decision based on their values, their integrity, and their level of self-governance. It has nothing to do with how kind you were, how loyal you were, or how much you gave. In fact, many times the very qualities that made you genuine are the same qualities that made you a target. Not because those qualities are weaknesses, but because they stood in contrast to the lack within the other person. You brought sincerity into the relationship. They brought hidden motives. You brought truth. They brought deception. And when those two realities coexist, eventually there will be a collision. Not because you failed, but because truth and falsehood cannot walk together forever. You have to free yourself from the burden of taking responsibility for someone else's moral failure. You did not create their choices. You did not design their mindset. You did not instruct them to betray you. That decision came from within them, and it was already there long before your paths crossed. If you are not careful, you will begin to internalize their actions and allow their behavior to redefine how you see yourself. You will start questioning your judgment, your value, even your ability to trust again. But that is the second layer of damage betrayal tries to inflict, not just to hurt you in the moment, but to alter your identity moving forward. And that is something you must refuse. Because if you accept their betrayal as a reflection of your worth, you give them power they were never meant to have. You allow their brokenness to become your burden. You let their lack of integrity rewrite your self-perception. And that is a greater loss than the betrayal itself. You must return to truth. Your value does not decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Your worth is not diminished because someone mishandled your trust. Your identity is not defined by how someone treated you in their lowest state. In fact, betrayal often reveals something powerful about you. It shows that you had something worth betraying. There was something in you that carried value, light, authenticity, or strength. And instead of honoring it, they chose to exploit it. That is not your shame. That is their failure. Do not confuse being betrayed with being weak. It takes strength to be open. It takes courage to trust. It takes maturity to give without constantly guarding yourself. Those are not flaws. Those are qualities of a person who is whole. The real mistake would be to let someone else's dysfunction convince you to abandon those qualities. You don't become wiser by becoming colder. You don't grow by becoming closed off. You don't protect yourself by losing your ability to love, trust, and connect. True growth comes from learning to maintain your character while developing discernment. It means you don't stop being who you are. You simply become more aware of who others are. So instead of asking, what's wrong with me? You begin to ask, what did this reveal to me? And what it revealed is this: not everyone deserves access to your heart, your trust, or your energy. Not because you are less valuable, but because you are more. You are not defined by who betrayed you. You are defined by who you choose to remain in spite of it. And when you fully understand that, something shifts inside of you. You stop carrying the weight of their actions. You stop questioning your worth. You stop shrinking yourself to make sense of what happened. Instead, you rise with clarity, with strength, and with a deeper understanding that your value was never on trial. There is a powerful truth that many people underestimate. Nothing hidden stays hidden forever. No matter how carefully someone tries to conceal their actions, no matter how deeply they bury their intentions, truth has a way of rising to the surface. It does not rush, it does not panic, and it does not operate on human timelines, but it is consistent and it is inevitable. When someone betrays, manipulates, or deceives, they often believe they have successfully escaped exposure. They rely on secrecy, on confusion, and sometimes even on your silence. They assume that because you did not react loudly, because you chose peace over chaos, that the story has ended in their favor. But what they fail to understand is that truth is not dependent on human defense. It carries its own power, its own momentum, and its own timing. You must understand that truth does not need to be defended, it needs to be allowed. When you refuse to engage in unnecessary battles, when you choose not to lower yourself to the level of deception, you are not losing. You are positioning yourself for a higher form of vindication. Many people think that silence is weakness, but in reality, silence can be strategy. It creates space for truth to reveal itself without interference. There is a natural order in life that governs outcomes. Just as a seed planted in the ground will eventually grow and reveal what it truly is, every action carries within it the potential for exposure. A lie may appear strong in the beginning, but it is structurally weak. It requires constant maintenance, constant covering, and constant reinforcement. The person who builds their life on deception must continuously protect that illusion, and over time, the pressure becomes too great to sustain. What you are witnessing when hidden actions come to light is not coincidence. It is alignment. It is the moment when reality catches up with intention. Every inconsistency begins to surface. Every contradiction begins to speak. Every hidden motive begins to reveal itself through patterns, through behavior, and through circumstances that can no longer be controlled. And here is something you must hold on to. Exposure is not your responsibility. You are not called to be the one who proves, argues, or forces people to see what was done to you. That role does not belong to you. Your responsibility is to remain anchored in truth, to protect your peace, and to continue growing beyond the situation. When you try to take on the role of exposing everything yourself, you often drain your energy and distract yourself from your own progress. Truth does not need your exhaustion, it needs your alignment. There is also a deeper dimension to this process. When truth begins to surface, it does not just reveal what someone did, it reveals who they are. It exposes patterns, intentions, and character traits that may have been hidden behind charm, manipulation, or performance. This is why exposure can feel so intense. It is not just about one action being uncovered. It is about an entire identity being revealed for what it truly is. For the person who operated in deception, this moment becomes unavoidable. The very things they tried to hide begin to confront them. Situations arise that they cannot control. Questions are asked that they cannot easily answer. The narrative they carefully constructed begins to fall apart piece by piece. And the more they try to hold it together through manipulation, the more visible the cracks become. Meanwhile, for you, this moment carries a different purpose. It is not about watching someone else fall. It is about understanding why you were removed. It is about gaining clarity, not closure from them, but closure within yourself. You begin to see that what once confused you now makes sense. The inconsistencies you ignored become clear. The discomfort you felt but could not explain now has a name. This is the power of truth. It restores your vision. It allows you to move forward without doubt, without second guessing yourself, and without carrying the burden of someone else's actions. You no longer need validation from the person who betrayed you because reality itself has become the validation. So do not rush the process. Do not become impatient when it seems like nothing is happening. Just because something is not visible does not mean it is not in motion. Truth works beneath the surface before it manifests in the open. It aligns circumstances, people, and timing in a way that no human effort can replicate. And when it finally surfaces, it does so completely. What was hidden becomes undeniable. What was denied becomes evident. And what was done in secrecy becomes something that can no longer be ignored. This is why you must remain steady. Stay grounded in who you are. Continue to build your life on integrity, because integrity does not just protect you, it positions you. It ensures that when everything is revealed, you are standing on solid ground, untouched by the collapse of falsehood around you. In the end, truth does not just expose others, it liberates you. What you went through was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to develop you. It may not have felt that way in the moment. In fact, it likely felt confusing, painful, and even deeply unfair. You may have questioned why you had to endure such treatment, why someone you trusted chose to betray you, and why the situation unfolded the way it did. But there is a truth you must come to understand. Not every painful experience is punishment. Some experiences are preparation. There is a difference between being attacked and being trained. When you are being attacked, the intention is to weaken you. But when you are being trained, the intention is to strengthen you, even if the process feels uncomfortable. What you faced was not random. It was shaping something within you that could not have been developed any other way. Before this experience, there may have been things you tolerated that you would never tolerate again. There may have been red flags you overlooked, boundaries you didn't enforce, or instincts you doubted. But now something has changed within you. You see more clearly. You discern more accurately. You feel more deeply what is right and what is wrong for your life. That is not damage. That is development. Pain has a way of sharpening your awareness. It forces you to pay attention in ways comfort never could. When everything is easy, you don't question much. You don't analyze deeply. But when something breaks, when something hurts, it demands your attention. It pushes you to reflect, to evaluate, and to grow. And in that process, you gain wisdom that becomes one of your greatest assets. You were being taught how to recognize truth beyond appearances. You were being trained to understand that not everyone who speaks well intends well. You were learning that character is revealed over time, not just through words, but through consistent actions. This kind of discernment cannot be taught through theory. It must be experienced. At the same time, something else was being built within you, strength. Not just emotional strength, but internal stability. The kind of strength that does not collapse when people disappoint you. The kind of strength that allows you to stand firm even when things around you feel uncertain. This strength is not loud and it is not aggressive. It is quiet, steady, and unshakable. You may not realize it yet, but you are not the same person you were before this happened. You have grown. You have matured. You have become more aware of your value and more protective of your peace. And that transformation is not something to overlook. It is something to honor. There is also a deeper level to this process. You were being guided away from something that was not aligned with your future. Sometimes when we are emotionally connected to people or situations, we cannot see clearly enough to walk away on our own. We hold on because we believe things will change or because we are invested in what we thought it could be. But when something breaks in a way that cannot be ignored, it forces a separation that we may not have chosen, but one that we needed. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like loss was actually protection. You were being moved out of an environment that could have limited your growth, distorted your self-worth, or delayed your purpose. Chances is subtantained. And while the exit was painful, it was necessary. In this process, you were also learning self-respect on a deeper level. Not the kind of self-respect that depends on how others treat you, but the kind that comes from within. The kind that says, I will not allow myself to remain in situations that diminish me. That level of self-respect changes how you move forward. It changes what you accept, what you tolerate, and what you walk away from. Everything you experienced added something to you. Even the parts that hurt, even the moments you wish you could forget, they all contributed to who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is stronger, wiser, and more aligned than ever before. So instead of asking why it happened, begin to ask what it produced in you. Because when you shift your perspective, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of the experience and start recognizing yourself as a product of growth through it. You were not being punished. You were being prepared for better decisions, for healthier relationships, for greater opportunities, and for a life that requires a higher level of awareness and strength. And now you carry something you didn't have before. The ability to see clearly, to choose wisely, and to stand firmly in your worth. There is a dimension of life that many people fail to understand because they are consumed with immediate reactions. When someone hurts you, your first instinct is often to respond, to defend, or even to retaliate. But there is a higher operation at work, one that does not require your interference, your anger, or your effort to balance the scales. Justice is not something you manufacture. It is something that already exists, governed by laws that function beyond human emotion. You must come to a place of maturity where you realize that not every battle is yours to fight. In fact, many of the battles you try to fight end up draining your energy, distracting your focus, and delaying your progress. When you attempt to take control of justice into your own hands, you step out of alignment with a system that is far more precise, far more powerful, and far more accurate than your personal response could ever be. There are laws in life that do not need your permission to operate. Just as gravity does not ask whether you believe in it before it pulls something downward, the law of consequences does not pause because someone thinks they have gotten away with wrongdoing. Every action carries a seed within it, and that seed will eventually produce a harvest. This is not based on opinion, it is based on order. The individual who betrayed you may have believed they were clever. They may have thought they covered their tracks, manipulated the narrative, or positioned themselves in a way that avoided accountability. But what they failed to recognize is that truth does not rely on exposure to exist. Truth exists independently, and at the right time, it reveals itself without struggle. This is why you must guard your spirit against the desire for revenge. Revenge is a sign that you have lost trust in the system of justice that is already in place. It is an attempt to speed up a process that cannot be rushed, and in doing so, you risk contaminating your own integrity. The moment you step into revenge, you begin to resemble the very behavior that hurt you. Instead, your responsibility is alignment. Alignment with truth, alignment with integrity, alignment with purpose. When you stay aligned, you position yourself in a place where life begins to work for you rather than against you. You are no longer reacting. You are operating from understanding. Understand this clearly. Justice is not always immediate, but it is always inevitable. There is a timing to everything. Sometimes the delay you see is not absence, it is preparation. It is the gathering of evidence, the alignment of circumstances, and the positioning of individuals and systems that will eventually bring everything into the light. While you are waiting, your assignment is not to watch them, it is to build yourself. Because if you become consumed with their downfall, you will neglect your own development. And when justice finally unfolds, you may find yourself unprepared for the opportunities that come with your elevation. You must also recognize that justice is not always loud. It does not always come with announcements or visible consequences that everyone can see. Sometimes it operates quietly, internally, dismantling a person's peace, their stability, and their sense of control. Other times it manifests externally through exposure, loss of credibility, or systems that begin to question and investigate what was once hidden. But regardless of how it appears, the principle remains the same. No action escapes consequence. This is why you can afford to have peace. Not because what happened was acceptable, but because you understand that you are not responsible for correcting it. Your peace comes from knowing that you are connected to something higher than the situation you experienced. When you truly grasp this, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you start declaring, this will not define me. You can't cheat such. You shift from victimhood to authority. You move from reaction to revelation. And in that position, something powerful happens. You are no longer emotionally tied to the person who hurt you. Their actions lose their control over your thoughts, your decisions, and your future. You are free. So let the system of justice do its work. Do not interrupt it with your impatience. Do not dilute it with your anger. Do not try to control what you were never designed to manage. Focus on becoming the person who can carry greater responsibility, greater influence, and greater purpose. Because while justice is being handled in one area, preparation is taking place in another, your life. And when everything aligns, you will realize that what you thought required your intervention was already being taken care of with a level of precision you could never achieve on your own. What you thought was rejection was actually protection operating at a level you could not yet see. When certain people are removed from your life, especially those you trusted, invested in, or even love, it can feel like something valuable has been taken from you. But there is a deeper reality at work. Not every connection is meant to continue, and not every presence is assigned to your destiny. Some people are only permitted to accompany you for a season, and when that season expires, their removal becomes necessary for your preservation. You must understand this principle. Anything that is not aligned with your purpose will eventually become a threat to it. What begins as a small discomfort can grow into a major disruption if it is not addressed. That is why separation often happens before destruction. It is not designed to hurt you. It is designed to save you from what you cannot yet fully discern. There are dangers you did not see, intentions you did not detect, and outcomes you could not have handled if things had continued the way they were. And Ziara Sedi Ati Atsai. Sometimes you were too emotionally invested to recognize the warning signs. You overlooked inconsistencies, justified questionable behavior, and gave the benefit of the doubt when your inner awareness was already signaling that something was not right. But protection does not rely solely on your awareness. It operates beyond it. Even when you were willing to stay, something greater intervened to ensure that you would not remain in a place that would eventually damage you. It is important to recognize that not all loss is negative. Some losses are strategic. They are intentional removals of elements that do not belong in the next phase of your life. If certain individuals had stayed, they would have introduced confusion, delayed your progress, and contaminated your environment. Their mindset, their behavior, and their lack of integrity would have gradually influenced your thinking, your decisions, and ultimately your results. Separation, therefore, is not abandonment. It is alignment. It is the process of clearing your space so that what truly belongs can enter. You cannot carry certain people into higher levels of your life because they are not equipped to function there. Their limitations would become your limitations. Their instability would disrupt your stability. Their hidden motives would compromise your growth. You may not have understood it at the time, but what felt like a painful ending was actually a necessary boundary being enforced. It was a line being drawn between where you were and where you are meant to go. Without that line, you would have continued investing in what could never produce the results you were expecting. You would have remained connected to something that was slowly draining your energy, your focus, and your potential. There are moments when protection feels uncomfortable because it requires detachment. It requires you to let go of familiarity, to release emotional ties, and to accept that something you valued cannot continue. But discomfort does not mean something is wrong. It often means something is being corrected. Growth is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes through disruption, through separation, through the removal of what no longer serves you. Consider this carefully. If someone had the capacity to betray you, they also had the capacity to damage your future in ways you cannot fully measure. The betrayal you experienced may have been painful, but it also revealed a truth that needed to be seen. It exposed a pattern that could not be trusted. And once the truth was revealed, continuation was no longer safe. So, what feels like loss is actually the prevention of a greater loss. What feels like rejection is actually redirection. What feels like an ending is actually a transition into something more aligned with who you are becoming. You are not being left behind, you are being moved forward. And as difficult as it may have been, that separation created space. Space for clarity, space for growth, space for healthier connections, better opportunities, and a stronger version of yourself to emerge. If everything had remained the same, you would not have evolved the way you are now. Protection is not always visible in the moment, but it becomes undeniable over time. One day you will look back and realize that what was removed from your life was never meant to stay. You will see how certain outcomes were avoided, how certain paths were closed for your benefit, and how certain people could not go where you are going. So instead of questioning the separation, learn from it. Instead of resisting it, accept what it has made possible. Because in that removal, there was wisdom. In that distance, there was preservation. And in that ending, there was the beginning of a life that is no longer exposed to the same risks, the same deception, and the same limitations. What left your life did not take your value with it. It revealed it. Sometimes in life, the events that seem most devastating are actually the very mechanisms through which our lives are being elevated. When someone betrays you, when a narcissist or manipulative person uses your trust and then discards it, it is easy to view the situation as a setback, a personal failure, or a cruel injustice. But that perspective is limited. There is a higher order at work, a universal law that says that every act has a consequence, and every exposure of deceit is a prerequisite for elevation. The person who betrayed you, who sought to undermine your progress or take advantage of your integrity, may not realize it, but their exposure is intricately connected to your rise. To understand this, you must first recognize that life operates on principles, not on randomness. There is an innate rhythm in the universe, a balance that ensures that deception, dishonesty, and betrayal cannot remain hidden indefinitely. Those who attempt to manipulate, exploit, or deceive often feel invincible in the moment, but the truth has a way of revealing itself. And when it does, it is not just for the purpose of punishment. It is for the purpose of clarity, discernment, and ultimately elevation for those who have been wrong. In this sense, the fall of deception is necessary for the rise of truth. When a narcissist betrays you, it is not your role to fix them, confront them, or convince them of their errors. Your role is to remain aligned with integrity, to maintain your vision, and to continue moving forward in the direction of your purpose. The exposure of their true character, the unveiling of their manipulation, serves as a natural separation between what was toxic and what is life-giving. The universe has a way of removing people from your path who are not aligned with your destiny. This is not merely coincidence. It is divine or universal orchestration. The betrayal, as painful as it may feel, is actually a form of protection, a clearing of obstacles that allows your own light to shine more brightly. Consider this: elevation in life requires preparation. You cannot step into higher levels of understanding, leadership, or spiritual authority while remaining entangled with falsehood. Dembatos tentis tu spa petao stat. If the deceptive person were allowed to remain hidden, their influence could continue to distort your perception, drain your energy, or mislead your decisions. But when their actions are exposed, you are liberated from their deception. You gain clarity, you gain insight, and in that liberation, you find the space to grow, to develop, and to ascend into the next stage of your life. Moreover, the exposure of their actions serves as a kind of educational process for you. It teaches discernment, the ability to recognize character beneath charm, motives beneath words, and truth beneath appearances. Every betrayal carries with it a lesson, and every lesson is a building block for your future. In other words, the revelation of their true nature is not a threat to your journey. It is a guidepost that points you toward wisdom, maturity, and self-mastery. By observing the unfolding consequences of their behavior, you learn the principles of cause and effect in human interactions. You see clearly that actions have outcomes and that integrity is the foundation upon which real influence and respect are built. Your elevation requires their exposure because clarity is necessary for growth. You cannot rise to a higher level of life while living under illusions. You cannot build authentic relationships, pursue meaningful opportunities, or exercise your full potential while remaining entangled with deception. The exposure of the narcissist or betrayer is therefore not about humiliation for them. It is about liberation for you. It creates the conditions for your own advancement. It gives you the freedom to act without fear, to trust your intuition, and to make decisions from a place of certainty rather than confusion. And here is a truth that must be understood. The fall of the deceptive individual does not diminish you. It amplifies you. Their exposure is not a reflection of your failures, weaknesses, or shortcomings. It is a reflection of their own choices being revealed. Your elevation is a consequence of your alignment with principles, your commitment to truth, and your refusal to compromise your values. As they face scrutiny, challenges, or even karmic consequences, you are being prepared to inhabit a space where integrity, wisdom, and clarity are your constants. Ultimately, the connection between their exposure and your elevation is a universal principle. Light cannot exist without shadow. Growth cannot occur without contrast. Elevation cannot take place without the removal of obstacles, and often those obstacles are disguised in the form of people who betray, manipulate, or deceive. Their fall is not your triumph in the sense of vengeance. It is your liberation. It is the opening of doors that were previously hidden, the alignment of circumstances that allow your life to flourish, and the creation of an environment where your potential can manifest fully. That's So, whenever you encounter betrayal, remember that their exposure is intricately linked to your elevation. It is a signal that your life is moving into a new dimension, a dimension where clarity, purpose, and power are yours to claim. The more they reveal themselves, the more your path is cleared, and the higher you're able to rise. Their truth is becoming your freedom, their exposure is becoming your growth, and their downfall is becoming the soil from which your next level emerges. In this way, the universe, life, or divine principle is not punishing them to satisfy you. It is orchestrating circumstances so that your integrity can be confirmed, your wisdom can increase, and your life can ascend. Trust in this process. Remain aligned with truth. Observe without resentment. And watch as what was once a source of pain becomes the very catalyst for your elevation, proving that your destiny was never tied to their deceit, but to your own purpose and perseverance.